Hello everyone, my name is Maciej Nowak and welcome to the Osom to Know podcast where we discuss all things related to building a great website. And as security is only increasing in importance these days, we will talk about it from a different perspective than the usual website security angle. My today's guest is Ricardo Silva, ex-infantryman and a special force officer fighting drugs and organized crime. Now, why do we talk with Ricardo? Because he is specialized in cybersecurity, physical pen testing, and OSINT. He shares in this conversation his experience in these areas and gives plenty of ideas what are the blind spots in the security of your company, digital and physical. I think we'll have to record a sequel to get even more out of Ricardo. If you don't want to miss new episodes and keep learning more about WordPress and security, subscribe to Osom to Know newsletter at osomstudio.com/newsletter. This is osomstudio.com/newsletter. If you watch this on YouTube, give us a thumb. This means a word to us. Without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Ricardo Silva.
Hey everyone, it's good to have you here. We're glad you decided to tune in for this episode of the Awesome to Know podcast.
Hi Ricardo, long time no see.
Hello. I believe it was like 3 months ago. We saw each other, 4 months, probably.
Yes, during WordCamp Porto. Yeah, Ricardo, I don't ask this to many guests, but for you I will make an exemption. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you are doing now, what you've been doing until now?
Okay. So, my name is Ricardo. I'm from Portugal. As you can see by my English, I'm not a native English speaker. I started as an infantryman in the Portuguese army, and then I made my way into a police force where I used to work at a special weapons and tactics team and unit that's responsible for fighting against illegal drug smuggling and also organized crime. Okay. So, and for the last few years, I've noticed that in cybersecurity, in security in general, there was a place for this type of set of skills, and to use this type of planning and to get your skills to work towards a safer environment. So I'm starting my own company that focuses on doing that, specifically on offensive cybersecurity and physical security. So that's where I am right now.
All right, and how did you come to visit WordCamp Porto? It's like WordPress centric event, WordPress only event, and how ex soldier ex
Military
special
law enforcement.
exactly. Oh yeah, okay. There's a distinction, and a guy undercover fighting drug warlords is suddenly at the WordCamp conference.
Yeah. The thing is, one of the things I noticed while starting to work in cyber is that, as you may know, and I don't know if your listeners know, the offensive cybersecurity has several areas. One of them being web application. And when it comes to web application, I've noticed that most of small and medium businesses resort to WordPress and use WordPress to run their websites, to run their e-commerces, and so on. So I figured out, if you want to work with web app penetration testing, what's the best place to start? Probably start focusing on small and medium businesses that might require your help. So one of the things that I realized is that programmers and developers are not very security aware. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to try to get to them and try to figure out how they think and when they are building and developing a platform for e-commerce on WordPress, for instance, like you asked, what is on their mind? what are they thinking when they are developing, what is their goal, and how can I get the a middle term between security and their own objectives. So that's why I went to WordPress, to get to talk to developers and talk to them a bit about security, get to know what they know about security. And one of the things that we talked about when I was there is that developers are not very aware of security issues that they might encounter. So that's why I went there.
And remarks after visiting WordCamp Porto. Have you confronted your views with any, I don't know, freelance developers, plugin makers, agency owners, and like any comments on that?
Yeah, the one of the things that I realized is after WordPress, it's easier for me to approach a company that has their website running on WordPress. That's just one of the things that made it easier, because now it seems like it's easier for me to figure out what developers want. So the thing is, when you cannot have a level of security that's too high, and that kind of seems like an obstacle for what developers want users to be faced with. Okay, so since WordPress and since I talked a lot with the developers, one of my takeaways is that security is a compromise between functionality and the effective protection that is providing. And that's one of the really key points that now when I'm talking to someone, I don't focus so much on, okay, so you are taking an approach that it's not secure at all. I try to understand why they are doing that. What is their goal, and if that compromise in security, because when you only work in security, one of the things is you only consider one thing that is safe. Okay, what is the safest path to achieve a goal? That's one of the things as someone working in security you will think. Developer, no, the developer has a specific goal that he wants to fulfill. So there's like a commitment between effectiveness and the security level or the security defenses that you will employ. So that's one of the takeaways I got from.
So to reiterate, to make sure I understand. So you see the discrepancy between coming from this security, let's say, space. You, as security expert, you think about only security. What's the most secure way of doing stuff? Yeah. Whereas the developer wants to achieve a goal, and it's not on the radar. The security is not on the radar. So that's the discrepancy. Or is it like when you are looking at that? Is it like you are even maybe obsessed with that security?
One of the principles that you employ when dealing with security issues is risk mitigation. Okay, so you list all of the things that could, in a simple term, you list all of the things that could go wrong, and then you have measures to mitigate those risks. That's something that is that's the main principle of risk management. So when you are working strictly in security, that's something that you almost only think about is mitigating risks. And I'll give you an example. For instance, when you're doing a pen test and you come across a client, doesn't matter if it's internal network or web app penetration testing, and you come across a client that has a very weak password policy, has a security consultant or so on. One of the things you will advise your client is to have a really strong password policy. This is like the main rule,
No-brainer.
the main guideline. Yeah, the no-brainer. The thing is, We usually advise to have really good and strong password policies. What this leads to is that the users will resort to weak passwords again. They will have, like, for instance, instead of having I am the greatest, 1, 2, 3 with a capital letter, they will do something to keep a weak password. Like, for instance, this is to give you a good example. I am the greatest 1, 2, 3, 4. The next time you reset the password, you will have I am the greatest 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You will follow. You won't
A
follow
path.
procedures.
Mhm.
Yeah, you will follow the same thing. So when you create really strong security policies, you will compromise the effectiveness of probably the website or so on. And when dealing with users, if you create really strong policies, users will try to figure a way to go across that policy to make it
So
easier for them. So it's like a compromise between effectiveness and being secure.
it's like the level of security is getting into the way of being effective, right? So this is what you were saying at the beginning of the conversation. So users will compromise the security for their, because every user is lazy, it's just natural way of like humans.
Something that you really come across in the workplaces that have a really strong password policy is that users usually use, for instance, phrases from a book or so on, and they have them with a post-it on their screen or underneath their keyboard.
But it's like meme, this sounds like a meme, you can only think about,
It's a human condition. It's a human condition
but have you come across such situations?
in a physical pen test. Yeah.
This is something I also wanted to touch base, like discuss. Can you explain a little bit more for our listeners? What is physical pen testing? Because we are most of the time we are developers, and pen testing means getting into a website. Now, what's physical pen testing?
Okay, the thing is, like I was saying before, penetration testing has lots of areas, and one of them is physical pen testing. Uh, as cybersecurity has been evolving, it's becoming harder for attackers to do an outside attack for a company or so on, or to outside attack a company. So one of the things that usually not as secure as the cyber environment is the physical world. A physical pen tester is someone who will try to break physical control measures to get inside the place and access some type of information. Can be physical information like documents, can be goods, items that are sensible for a company, any type of asset that the company is protecting. One of the things, there is more common, and companies usually like to focus more, is the physical access to ports in server rooms and so on. Okay, that's usually a type of concern that companies have. But physical pen test may be as simple as getting through the front door of a company without being detected by the security guards. You can do it by a covert. You can do by doing it covert. You can do it. There's several types that you can do. You can do covert. You can do clandestine. There's types of operations that you can develop. The main goal in here is to get to cross that barrier that is supposed to protect physical assets and digital assets within the physical world.
Let's think about an agency. What we are coming across is, for example, clients wanting to fill out a questionnaire, and there are many questions regarding physical security of the business. Like, what is the protection? What are the protection measures of the premise, if there is monitoring and stuff like this? This is part of, for example, certification, ICO certification. I have a feeling it's neglected. You go around an office building with many offices, and I have a feeling this is not very seriously taken. Especially the bigger the office, the more anonymous people can wander around. The bigger the war. So I'm curious to know, what have you came across in your work that is screaming to your face as a security person that's, for example, easy to get covered?
I can give you some examples, some general examples, but that will join some real things. The thing is, for instance, take an hospital, okay? An hospital, a private hospital or a public hospital. The thing is, healthcare providers have lots of sensitive information within. Why is this information critical? Because something like your home address or even your service providers and so on are things that you change during your life. Your health data, your date of birth, your medical conditions, those pieces of your information will remain the same throughout your life. Okay, so healthcare providers are nowadays a target for cyber criminals. Okay, physical world. One of the things that you will notice is that you can get, and this is part of an engagement. We call engagement when you're doing a pen test. This is part of an engagement. So one of the things that you will notice is that private companies that run security on premises, security guards that are hired to be there, have no idea of what cyber is. The thing is, you can have a guy walking around the premises with a huge antenna on his backpack, or just sitting down in a waiting area with a laptop on his lap filled with stickers that says, "I am a hacker," and you won't get reported. You won't get checked because security personnel don't have that kind of don't have any type of idea of what might sound suspicious to them. Okay, another real example and this is proven. You can have photographs of an individual, of a guy sitting inside. This is for a pen test. You then present on the report. You have those photos that say you had the guy sitting on your waiting area, and he was with a laptop, and he wasn't approached by anyone from the security team. Another example, you can go from one of the techniques that you use in physical penetration testing is the so-called tailgating, where you wait for someone to open a door and then you just go, "Hold that door for me," and you get in after that person. No one asks you anything. If you have a good cover, if you have good attitude, if you are confident with the way you are doing things in a simple operation, you will get through those doors and you will be able to access areas that you aren't supposed to. The same within companies. And this is, you might think, okay, so you were talking about an hospital. An hospital is something that has lots of people coming in and out. Yeah, it's true. But if you are talking about an IT company and we are talking about medium and larger companies, because if you have like a smaller studio or a small company, it's harder to get inside and not be noticed. But when you get to a bigger IT company, you can still go through the front door, talk to the security guard, have a drone. One of the things that you have a drone right here, over here, is this drone has an equipment on top that lets me ward drive and get intel about the access points on a building. One of the things that we test is that when we are flying a drone above an area or a lounge area where employees are smoking and so on, if someone is going to report that. And in 90% of the cases, even when a security guard notices that there is a drone over there flying, he won't report that issue. Mm-hmm. It's important for everyone on the security team and even CISOs and so on to know that this is a security incident. They might need to check on this.
Yeah, I'm curious about that drone because this is super interesting. Drones are getting more and more popular. Why would a guard notice this as a security incident, and what would be the consequences for of that incident?
Okay, so most in penetration testing and physical penetration testing, we use drones for two things. This is like a kind of hybrid area of penetration testing because there's the technical standpoint of it, not only breaking in but exploiting. What can I use the drone for? I can use the drone with a Raspberry Pi to create a rogue access point and to place that access point on a point of my leverage if I cannot get into the premises and get employees to connect to my access point.
So you're like creating a Wi-Fi hotspot with I don't know, with a with a battery pack, let's say, on top of building, and you can cover the whole area, right?
I can
Okay,
cover
okay.
the whole area. Then I can try to get employees to connect to my access point and then try to get some credentials from that. For instance, something that should be reported is if you are on your break smoking a cigar and then you get a notification with the name of your company and saying that the free Wi-Fi is now available because you get that on smartphones. For instance, in the name of your company, free wireless is now available. You should report that to your security personnel because that's an issue. That might be an attack vector for criminals. Okay, you should report anything. You should report everything that it's not usual. Okay, so for instance, one of the things that as a penetration tester we do is with RFID access cards. The
Mhm.
most common ones that we find are from the brand HID, and I believe worldwide they are one of the most used ones. One of the things that you notice is that if you get to one of the access doors of the building, and it has a small reader for you to get your card and to get in, it has a small RFID reader. If you start messing around with it and then open it, even if you what we usually do, we get a small chip inside that allows us to clone and then replay credentials. So we open it up, install our equipment, close it, and wait for people to get in. And one of the things that we can do after that is to replay that
Mhm.
credential and also get our access in.
You're skimming cards, right? Card skimmer, in fact.
That's the principle. The thing is, you are not only copying the cards, you have the ability to replay them by connecting to a wireless access point on your cell phone, and then from my cell phone I can replay the credentials and get the access. One of the things that we notice is even even if we take too much time installing the equipment and someone alerts the security guard, after we close the case of the RFID reader and leave the area, one of the things that the security guard will do is to get his card to open the door with his card. We get their credentials. You won't. They are not trained to look at the equipment, see if it has any anti-tampering screws and if it has been tampered with. They don't have enough knowledge. And this is common sense. It's a bit of training that you need to do with your security teams. You don't need to have technical knowledge, but just look at the equipment, see if there's any signs of tampering, look at the screws, and if so, just don't get your card in, test the door works, close the door and go away. Report that incident. That's usually the incident. The first credential. If you get noticed if you get caught during a pen test, the first credential you will get is the one from the security guard.
Mhm.
That's almost always the case.
And but then let's say no one reported that, and the security guard will use the card, and unless you know that the reader was tampered with, it means what? You have to look around every reader. In fact, if you are on watch on patrol, let's say.
Yeah, the thing is, you should, and this is something that with my company is one of my goals, is to bring this kind of cyber knowledge to the everyday person, to the everyday Joe, even if he has security is something that is transversal to all of the employees in your company, all of your staff, everyone, even if they are from legal, from accounting, and so on, they should know about security, physical and cybersecurity. Okay, what we expect. What we expect is that companies and companies that have assets that are critical, what we expect from them is that they have incident response plans for this type of incidents. Okay, you cannot rely on the way that specific person thinks in order to protect your company. You can get lucky and have a security guard that is willing to go across the perimeters, review all the CCTV footage, see if any of the CCTV cameras has been tampered with or is under denial of service. You cannot leave that. You cannot leave that to luck. Okay, every security personnel on ground has to follow the same guidelines when they notice something that isn't right. That can be a drone, that can be a stranger on premises, that can be something out of the side, that could be a box placed somewhere near an Ethernet port or so on. They have to have guidelines to follow, and that's one of the things that we want to teach and to.
And what should a person do in general terms, when an incident is, strange behavior is observed? Like, obviously that, guy with a laptop, spending too much time in the lobby, or lose, cases of. Now it gets reported, and then what? How that policy should work?
Well, the first thing, let's go stage by stage. The first thing is knowing how to identify what is a suspicious or not behavior. The issue is that if staff members are not trained, they will start reporting things that don't have any meaning. Okay, you get if you start reporting a lot of things with the time passing by, you will look at those major reports with lots of submissions, and you won't pay enough attention to every one of them. So when reporting, the staff member who is reporting needs to know what they are reporting about and what might be the implications of that. They don't need to know everything in technical terms, but they need to know what's the base of that. You can have it's if you have a report that says that there is a square box, cardboard box in the middle of your or near one of your doors, probably the person who is responsible for looking at the report will think, okay, this has no interest. This guy is just reporting.
MS.
Yeah, this is a mess. So the first thing is know what you are reporting and know where to report it and to who to report it, and have a way to channel all of those reports to the right place. People should report and should not be afraid to report or to look stupid when reporting something. If one of the main essential thing is if people know what they are reporting about, they won't look stupid. Okay, so don't be afraid if you are on the even if on the lower tier security guard, for instance. Don't be afraid to report and to get your information to the top layers of your chain of command. The last step for me is to get reports to be reviewed by someone who really knows what they are looking at. Because one of the things, especially in small and medium businesses, is that the guy who is responsible for the equivalent to a CISO who is responsible for the security of the information is also the same guy who is responsible for 5 more roles. Okay, so if you don't have time to focus on a specific task or on a specific issue, that will be the road to insuccess.
Just know, okay, you have the report, you read the report, everyone reported the stuff, reports got read. What now? Like that it's already in the past. You can you do anything about that?
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. One of the things that you can do about that is to review logs. This is why training is very important, and I believe that in 10 years from now, you will have a lot more people in cyber that know about this type of operations. The first step of any kind of military law enforcement or even pen testing operation is reconnaissance. Okay, so if you detect someone suspicious on your premises or taking photos of your employees or of your access points, of your equipments, of your entries to your building, you might not have a cyber incident yet. However, you have an incident. You have someone who is gathering intel to perform something. If you're, for instance, if you're on the web app realm, if you are noticing that you are having suspicious activity on your website, even if they are not breaking into your website and accessing your admin panel or so on, you should be cautious. You should be ready to respond to an incident. And that's the first step, because you might still be in time to avoid the incident. Okay? If your report is about something that has already happened, someone has entered your building and had access to one of your internet ports or so on, you should review all of your logs. You have to do some kind of forensic work. You should follow everything, like reverse engineer an attack. You should review logs. You should interview your staff, ask them if they saw anything suspicious, review CCTV cameras, review physical access control, review everything. That's what you should have on your incident response, even if it's from an early stage. Someone is doing reconnaissance on their target, on your company, or someone you are already under an attack.
Ton of work if you want to slow down the company, create a couple of such incidents and everyone will be scrambling, reading logs and not doing business. I'm curious also about OSINT, because when we talked in Porto, you also mentioned how OSINT is important to gather information. Also, we're in Ukraine shown how much stuff you can get from OSINT, but then also people are unwillingly maybe revealing information that can get them, I don't know, maybe not compromise is a bad word, but can reveal too much unwillingly, let's say. So I'm curious about that.
Has an offensive the difference between offensive cybersecurity professional, a pen tester or red teamer and so on. The great difference is that you don't rely on assumptions. You really test the systems. You don't wait for them to be broken and to see what made them fail. One of the most important things that we do is to try to replicate the techniques, and procedures that criminals follow. Okay, so one of the things that criminals do is to not waste their time on targets that are not, we are talking about high tier criminals, is not to waste time on targets that are not worth it. Sometimes what cyber criminals do is to look at hundreds, thousands of targets and choose the ones that they are skilled to attack, that have revealed enough information from them from the passive standpoint to get enough information in order to perform an attack, to successfully perform an attack. So that's the real importance of OSINT. Like criminals do, offensive cybersecurity professionals, the first thing they do is to get as much intel on the target as they can, and that's one of the main roles of OSINT, to give you enough information for you to plan your attack and not to waste time in choosing attack vectors that might not be successful. For instance, we can talk about WordPress and something that is very present on WordPress websites. For instance, you get a lot of information about a target without even having to interact with that target. For instance, usernames, admin accounts, technologies. You can get version disclosure is something that we find critical. If I'm able to employ a tool on your website that is a passive tool that you won't get a log that that tool was used, or if I'm able to look at the source code of your website and get the current version of your technologies, okay, that for us is a finding, is an information disclosure. I am able to know what you are running, and I'm able to plan an attack. If, for instance, you don't update your, because of a compatibility issue or so on, if you don't update one of your technologies in use on your WordPress website, I'll be able to know that without you having the option to know that I'm looking at it. Okay, so OSINT plays a major role in that. When in regards to general users or general to the average Joe, one of the things that nowadays, if you don't give consent when using a third party app or service, if you don't give consent to use some of your personal data, you become excluded from the digital world. When you're using Facebook, when you're using Instagram, when you are using a simple face swap app on your cell phone, when you are using SyncMe, the application that lets you know who's calling you, for instance, you are giving away some of your data. And the company that has that data is vulnerable to cyber attacks. Sometimes those companies are attacked and that data is leaked. And that becomes OSINT. Your personal data becomes able to be gathered through OSINT by looking at ransomware websites, by looking at data collection, data brokers. Okay, so OSINT is everywhere. You have lots of information about you, about your company, about everything. For instance, back to what we were talking about before, WordPress. One of the things that developers don't consider a source of information are the license and the README files of WordPress. Usually, when we cannot enumerate the version of a WordPress CMS on a website, what we do is look at the license and see what's the data on the license, because you have, for instance, the initial data of WordPress and the latest update on the license. And developers usually don't care about that. Almost 90% of my websites of the website I've tested have the license available. And if you have an older version of WordPress that is, for instance, has the data from the date, not the data, the date from the last year, you'll be able to know that that WordPress version is not patched, it's not updated, so you can run an exploit against it. So this is also the ability to get a lot of information without interacting with your target from a passive standpoint.
Yeah, that's for WordPress. I'm curious, for example, about let's say, personal attacks, like you're like a.
Okay, so about OSINT. Yesterday, I was talking to a journalist that is interested in starting to give this type of training to journalists in Portugal from a more passive stand, from a more cyber, with a more cyber focused approach. The thing is, nowadays, a couple of years ago, when you were talking about OSINT, people only considered, for instance, social networks. When you're talking about personal information, getting personal information from open sources. People only remember, like, for instance, only think about social media. Social media nowadays, it's harder to get information from. You can get a lot of indirect information. You can get places that are visited by the person and so on. What I believe that it's the most efficient way of getting information on a target, on a person that criminal will use, are data breaches. With lateral movement and access to data breaches, criminals can spearfish you. Spear phishing is one, I don't know if your listeners know, when a phishing attack is directly targeted at someone, at you, as some things that will only apply to you. With by looking at buying data from data brokers, looking at data breaches, criminals nowadays with open source intelligence, not even tools like techniques, because there's a difference between a tool and a technique. A tool is temporary. You can use a tool today and you won't be using it tomorrow because it's not available and so on. A technique is something that you will know and just look for the right tool to use it. So, in personal terms, if you want that, there's not much that you can do to protect yourself because it's not your responsibility. You have, for instance, you have the town hall on your city. You have to give them your data. They have your address. They have your social identification number. They have all of your data. It's their responsibility to protect that data. So if they are attacked, if they lose those assets, there's not much you can do about besides knowing how to look at an attack, observe an attack, see that might be an attack, acknowledge that there is an attack and protect yourself. You check sources, don't click on links, go straight forward to your, for instance, to your home banking and so on, not using that link. Those are the only things you can do. In personal, let me just tell you that when it comes to persons, one of the things that is really useful, and I get this a lot, not only in WordPress websites, but in websites in general, is that you should strip out your everything you upload to your websites from the metadata. From, for instance, a PDF file, if you upload a PDF file to your website, it will keep the author, it will keep the information about, for instance, the station where it was created, and the same applies with images. If you upload, for instance, photographs to your website and you don't strip out the metadata, through OSINT tools, you can extract all of that metadata, including the geographic location if you are taking a picture with an Android or with an iPhone that allows for metadata to be created, and by default they do. So just a quick tip: if you go to your album and you have the location, to your photo gallery, and you have the location where the different pictures of your gallery were taken, there is metadata on your photo. If you upload that directly to a website, for instance, the website will keep the file with that metadata, and the attacker can extract that information and geolocate you as a target. So those are some of the things that you can do with OSINT.
What I find very interesting is that once someone who keeps your data, like that city council, let's say, or city hall, loses your data, it becomes publicly available for everyone, basically. So it becomes not maybe public domain, but a black public domain. You have to only buy the suitable database on black market. This is something that Apple maybe not buy, but it appalls me that this is so easy to get. Then
I can give you a practical example. So, like 6 months ago here in Portugal, there was a city council that was attacked in the north of Portugal. It was attacked by Raicida, the criminal group, and they published, I believe, 75% of that data. They extracted the PYI, the personal identifiable information. They extracted some of it, including passports and so on. They were selling it for auction, and they had the rest of that data published. Okay, from that data, and we as cyber professionals, and especially offensive cybersecurity, we look at that data and see if, for instance, any of your clients is implied in that data. If you have any of those long-lasting clients that you work with 24/7 monitoring cyberspace and so on, you manually look at that area and see what implications. For example, one of the things that was lost that has implications to the physical world is the location and codes of all the public alarm, all the alarm codes of the public buildings in that city. Okay, that's something that is currently OSINT. It's not available because the ransomware dark web website was hit by the FBI, I believe. But someone who has had access to that information knows not only the location, but the codes to every alarm within that city. For instance, other things lost. There is something that there was a piece of backup data regarding like a city program regarding elderly people and supporting elderly people, and it has a lot of contact information and a lot of personal data about those who are more likely to be targeted in phishing. Okay, there's nothing you can do about that. I've heard that in the United States, this information is not public. That once the ransomware group uploads that into their website, that information gets copied, gets worked on by data brokers to be so that can be sold into batches of specific data. But once that information is out, there is no turning back. And that's one of the things. I've heard that in the United States, there are cases in which the ones who have their data online by the leaked online get some actions against the companies for not properly securing their data. Because that's a responsibility. You are responsible, and you were talking about standards. For instance, SOC 2 is specially designed to protect the data, for instance, of your customers. You are responsible for that data. And in the United States, I've read that some people that had their data leaked were pushing actions again, were presenting actions against those companies because it was their responsibility. But on the other side, what companies were defending themselves by saying is that there is no direct link between the usage of that data and the leakage. It's hard to prove that if you get scammed, if you get a phishing email, if you get a phishing call, if you get smishing, it's hard to prove that this is because that information was leaked. Okay, so it's especially here in Portugal, it's really, really hard to prove that that company was responsible for that information and that the loss of that information resulted in something that is an issue for you. It's a problem for you.
But I think there was a very big case for British Airways when they got hacked and a lot of customer data was leaked. They got fined for like breaking GDPR. So not only you get a reputation hit, you lose trust of your customers for some time until they forget about that. But then you get a financial hit for breaking GDPR. Obviously, you can't prove that this is you get hacked because of that leak, but there is that fine from GDPR. Is there anything every one of us can do except having strong password policy do to be more prepared for being more, let's say, being more cyber resilient, if I may say so?
Okay, so in my opinion, one of the first things that you as an individual you need, and here in Portugal the government has a program for that. It's like the cyber secure citizen. The translation might be similar to this. So one of the things that everyone needs to know in 2024 is how an attack is carried out, how a phishing attack is carried out. They need to understand how attackers think and what they might ask. For instance, you get a lot of, I believe so, you get a lot of phishing emails and smishing messages, but you never click the link, for instance, because you don't. It's one of the rules for your protection. You don't click random links. Okay, but the thing is, when you click the link, and I'm not telling you to, I'm telling you this as a professional, you get an insight on what the attackers want. If you get, for instance, if you get to a page that is asking you about it's a page of an institution that you already have, for instance, an account in, and is asking you the same information, something is not right. They have that information. Why are they asking you that information again? Why are they asking you for your home address? Why are they asking you for things that they should have? So one of the things that people need to know to protect themselves is how attackers think. That's one of the key points for me. So, and the other thing that people might and the everyday, I think your question is regarding that, the everyday user, and probably someone who is not in who works in cyber but not related to security. One of the things that everyone should be present and should know is that everything you do online leaves a track. Okay, if 10 years ago, one of the things that we do is lateral movement. For instance, I can give you an example. You might think if you have an old email with 10 years ago that is leaked, okay, and has a password leaked with it, you have the email address and the password. One of the things that people should know is that this is still important, okay, because for instance, your backup email address, the one that you reset your password to, might be that old email from 10 years ago. So one of the things that you should do is review everything, not only what you did in the last year, but review everything you did in the last 10 years. Because, like I was telling you, lateral movement is this. I get an email address from you from a lead website, a lead generating website from marketing or so on. This is one of the OSINT techniques. I then run this email through a data breach from a data breach website collector or so on. I get a password. And if I present this to you in a report, you say, okay, but this is an old password. I don't use this password anymore. But lateral movement is this. I'll then change my search query to that password and get the email that you used 10 years ago. And that email that you used 10 years ago, it's still the recovery email for your current Gmail account. Okay. Other thing that people need to know in regards with phishing, that I believe that it's one of the main issues of worrying of the average citizen, is that people tend to not trust on email addresses but to trust a lot on SMS messaging. If you get a text message with the header of your bank or of your any of your service providers, you actually the text message gets aggregated to the ones that you received because it has the same header. You immediately trust that. You do. All more than half, or I would guess more than 75% of the users will trust that. Okay, spoofing
Seems
is a
natural.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, spoofing is a thing. It's very easy without any technical knowledge by hiring a third party to spoof an SMS header. So that's one of the advice. This is a trend that is on the uprise, is that people usually trust immediately on SMS if they have a header that is compatible with something they have. So be alert to that. Be alert to what someone is asking you, what a provider is asking you. Try to give your there's a service that is provided by Proton that lets you have Proton Mail that lets you have one email account, but then that email account generates several email addresses that relay all of the emails to your main account. So you will have your, for instance, Osom at proton.me, for instance, and then you have several email addresses that you can use to fill out forms, to register on websites, and so on. So I would advise, if you work in cyber, if you use several technologies, if you use several third apps and so on, I advise you to get an email address and not use your personal email address. Don't use your main work email address. Try to be a little. If someone wants to hack you, you will get hacked. Just try to have more barriers in order to make it harder for them, so that they can switch targets and choose someone else.
Yeah, someone easier. All right. Thank you. Thank you. This was very interesting conversation, especially in a world where you leave a trail everywhere and you get just annoyed by the cookie banners and think this is it. this is me stop being trailed, maybe like tracked. Thank you. This was very, very illuminating, let's say.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure for me to be able to speak a lot
Yeah,
a bit
exactly.
more than last time.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
If you like what you've just heard, don't forget to subscribe for more episodes. On the other hand, if you've got a question we haven't answered yet, feel free to reach out to us directly. Just go to osomstudio.com/contact. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode of the Awesome to Know podcast.